I received the book by Brown Woolley, Brown Will. She W. Her book, Sister Wives, is a memoir about independence, family, and faith. And since it's on the shelf at Barnes & Noble, my spouse took a car there. When my husband arrived, it appeared that they had just placed it on the shelves. Additionally, the book has roughly 292,295 pages. It reads really quickly. And while some of this won't be shocking to Sister Wives viewers, she spends a large portion of this book going over the show and discussing more. When anything was filmed, what was happening behind the cameras. And you begin to discover more about the setup and operation of the filming process. And in fact, she delves into many of the betrayals that many of us saw on the show but nobody mentioned, and she admits things that many of us had been speculating about for years. She either confirms them or provides additional information that we were unaware of, and a lot of it boils down to the lack of closeness in her marriage to Kody. She goes into great detail about the betrayal that occurred when Kody married her despite not being attracted to her. Christine didn't learn of this until he chose to write a book with her after the show came out, humiliating her. Their marriage wasn't always happy, and she didn't always get along with her sister wives. She wasn't even friends with Meri by the time the show began. And her connection to Janelle. Although Janelle has talked about how they experienced this, a synergistic connection, and although Christine doesn't disagree, she accuses Janelle of being controlling and claims that she frequently felt taken advantage of by Janelle, who would start a project and require Christine's assistance. She claims that she didn't defend herself sufficiently in her early years and that everyone around her bullied and steamrolled her, despite her love for Janelle. Additionally, if you want her to fully condemn polygamy it won't be possible to truly condemn polygamy as a whole and claim that it must be prohibited. You guys, it's quite clear from this book that she still has a long way to go in terms of deconstructing herself. However, when she begins to narrate the event and begins to awaken and recognize that she is being deceived and misled, it is quite pleasant to watch her viewpoint shift. Additionally, she talks about parts of her church that were purposefully left off the show. Included the time she herself learned of the child sex accusations that were taking place in her own church, which served as a major wake-up call for her to abandon polygamy. And because of what she discovered about her church's leaders, who were meant to be men of God, prophets of God, intimate with God, and speaking for God, harming children. This is why she claims in her book that she didn't feel the need to approach leaders after divorcing Kody and leaving him, that were abusing women, hurting children, and engaging in abusive behavior. They had no power over her, and since they couldn't even maintain a tidy home, she wasn't going to ask for their permission to leave Kody. Simply enough, she thought they were hypocrites. She therefore didn't require their consent. It's great to hear her admit that since she was well aware of what was going on behind the scenes, even though they weren't expressing it, occurring, and she quit her church because of it. She actually talks about how the religion transformed after its members were sued for stealing from an actor. Also, according to our church, God said men are in charge. Seriously, what kind of God would come up with that plan? I started to question members of our leadership. I didn't find them honorable, and on a personal level, I didn't care for them, she writes. Virgin Hill, an actor, charges that they stole more than that. The church chose replacement leaders who were so strict that our children detested them. They wanted Kody to cut his hair because they said he couldn't pass the sacrament, bless, and pass ceremonial bread if he didn't because Jesus had a crew cut. After he found out, we learned that we weren't supposed to wear earrings, and a civil court ruled in her favor, holding that church leaders embezzled tithing money. She explains why they didn't specifically discuss the church, and a lot of it had to do with the church not wanting to be involved in the show, breaking up with church leaders, etc. I told him that I didn't think our articles of faith were the words of God. I think one of the things about the show that has really irritated me is the lack of transparency they had when they discussed what was happening within their own church. The church needed to control its message, and the Brown family was a wild card, and no one knew how the public would receive us. The church was dealing with a public relations disaster, one that I didn't want to be associated with. She acknowledges something that they've never discussed on the show, but a lot of it was also just that they didn't want to harm or betray their family members who were still inside the church. Around the same time that we began filming, there were reports that members of my church had molested children. This was exactly what I had always criticized about the FLDS, and it made me cry. The idea that something like that could happen to one of our children was heartbreaking. This was the organization that provided the moral guidelines for our behavior, and I recalled my mother's constant advice that we should evaluate church leaders on an individual basis rather than assuming they are good or moral. It's like a petri dish, where bacteria grow and grow because nothing is coming from outside to stop it. After years of publicly defending this and saying that we're not like that, our church isn't like that. In private, they knew that their church was like that. The church chastised us for going public, and they continued to live in secrecy. Nothing could persuade me that fear of the outside world justified a system where true evil could exist. Precarious situation, and they had a plan that they needed to present to the mainstream media, but it also, in my opinion, highlights the fraud that was taking place. I don't really blame the women because, if you read the book, you'll see how naive Christine is. So naive that she says she wasn't addicted to oxycodone because she used it for 2 weeks and that she didn't even get a full prescription because she had knee surgery. She used her oxy to cope with the pain, but she also used it because it helped her feel better. After 2 weeks, she realizes she is addicted to it, and she needs to stop using it. It's not quite the same as a full-blown addiction, but she didn't like that it made her feel as though she needed it. However, this is her naivete because drugs of any kind are sinful in her culture, and using drugs to escape is also sinful. I don't know it's her naivety, but a lot of what the book does is reveal how much of a fraud the show was. They would go on to a set, right? And they had everything pre-planned, and when they put together a season, the way she describes it is, okay, we would have these events that we were going to do. And she didn't even finish her bottle that she prescribed. They would film events, and then, in between, they had to go and do their interviews and then do things like promotional work. As a result, they worked around the clock, typically working 1 week and taking 1 week off. They hardly saw each other outside of filming because they had other things to do, like taking care of their children and other responsibilities. As a result, the majority of their interactions took place on camera, and when they weren't together for very long at any given time. When Kody wasn't on camera, he was actually with Robyn, and the two of them really coordinated what they were going to say together on the show, which also affected the reactions of everyone else on the show. She goes into great detail about how, once Robyn joins the family, Kody really finds this, He is a person who deserts everyone. He spends all of his time with Robyn. He is never with the kids. He is never really at home. He will arrive at 6 o'clock at night and eat dinner, which he makes her prepare. It is not the typical meal they would eat. The house must be spotless. Everyone must be well behaved and treat him like a king. And if they don't treat him well, act appropriately, and treat him like a king. He frequently tells Christine, I don't love you because you're not lovable. Be more lovable. He leaves because the house isn't perfect, and he can go somewhere where it is. He won't change who he is because it's not his responsibility. His quote is, I move from pain to pleasure. Therefore, if it's painful where Christine is, he's going to go where it's pleasurable, which is with Robyn. In order to win his love, she would have to meet guardrails and goalposts, but once she got there, he would change it or force her to do something she couldn't even accomplish. One thing I will say is that, although there are many discussions in the book about how much Kody changed with Robyn and how much Robyn meddled in their marriage, the majority of the criticism is actually aimed at Kody, who acknowledges that Robyn manipulated him. She admitted that Robyn would frequently have conversations with Kody at home, and then the two of them would have these coordinated stories that would appear on camera that really contradicted what everyone else was saying, and that she really interfered in his affairs by pitting him against her, forming opinions for him, and manipulating him into saying things or twisting things to get Kody upset with her. In contrast to the Brown family tradition of just moving forward, Robyn liked to think about everyone's perspective and to talk through conflicts, which made for great TV. She claims that Robyn would say that she could speak Kody as if the wives who had been with him for as long as 20 years needed a translator. In reality, it often seemed as though he repeated on camera what he'd heard in a discussion they'd already had at home. She wasn't my counselor. I wasn't married to Kody and Robyn, just Kody. I'd known Kody long enough to know when he used Robyn's words as justifications for his own behavior. I was frequently hurt by how much she knew, and I was annoyed by how she influenced Kody's behavior toward me, even if it was in a positive way. I believe she wanted to make sure Kody treated everyone well, but that meant Kody talked about his other relationships with her. Once they go public and once he's in this relationship with Robyn, Robyn is manipulating and really pitting him against the other women, but then on the show trying to appear like she's doing it altruistically, she said, adding that even though Kody is a comment reader, he spends a lot of time in the comments reading negative comments and getting really mad about what people think of him. Even though he appeared to love his famous status, everyone was criticizing him. This could be the reason he began to worry about loyalty. Who of his wives backed him? And if, as the patriarch, he was doing enough to influence the course of events in his family. He began using terms like covenant and agreement, which he hadn't used in the beginning of our relationship, as though we had all made a contract with him and that, in cases when we did, his word was law. We aimed to provide a constructive image on the program, but we also needed to be cautious not to throw off the delicate balance. Kody spent less time with me and my children if I voiced my displeasure with our marriage on the show. He would withhold his attention as a form of punishment if we didn't follow his instructions. That was the main focus of Vegas. In polygamy, husbands don't go to the doghouse, so if I had any concerns, he would respond, "Well, we can choose to fight or we can choose not to, and I'll stay." In the chain, they move on to the next wife. I came to a standstill. When something disturbed me, I told him. It was draining. Everything felt difficult in the background, but I felt like we had to be on all the time. On the set, I had no idea what we would analyze. Everything is seen on my face. She even talks about how she would utilize language as a result, since she would lose the things she needed if she didn't comply with Kody and Robyn's wishes. We're just doing the best we can and raising our kids in a home full of love, she would remark. I'd say. Our connection with Kody had been a little more push and pull before that. When Kody was upset with one of us, he would always turn away. However, he would bring us back in when Janelle stormed out of town and I went to visit my folks. A visit, a romantic present, a big date, or love bombing. Another thing you might notice about this book is that a lot of their interactions are captured solely on camera. As a result, she only ever speaks to Robyn while filming. And after that, she would speak with Robyn on camera. After that, Robyn would go back to Kody and inform him about Christine. After that, Kody would return to her, scold her, and accuse her of mistreating Robyn. Because Robyn would misinterpret anything she told him and use it against her to make Kody angry with Christine, she stopped confiding in Robyn and telling her things. Furthermore, she doesn't necessarily hold Robyn responsible for the dissolution of the family. Bringing Robyn in, she claims, just revealed what was flawed in the household. And despite the fact that Robyn exhibited extremely maladaptive behaviors that undoubtedly affected everyone, as well as being highly manipulative and undoubtedly stealing money, she places the responsibility solely on Kody. This book also reveals that Kody is attempting to control and navigate his reputation. Therefore, he is attempting to get his family members, such as his wife and kids, to be obedient so that others would cease disparaging him and don't ruin his reputation. For example, he claimed he couldn't be away from his family for 3 weeks, which is why he declined to attend Isabel's operation on the show. She continues by writing that Isabel found that to be really perplexing and that she said, "I thought I was his family." Kody was unaware that Hunter and Aspen had come to New Jersey to be with Isabel for the surgery. Consequently, it damaged his reputation. Consequently, his SI children traveled to the surgery. He was meant to be there, but he refused to go, so he became upset with them. As a result, Kody spent a lot of time managing his image and trying to control what people said about him, just like Jim Bob Duggar did to his family. Additionally, you find that the arguments they would have simply reenacted. Thus, it also demonstrates to you how phony the program is. Thus, although the chats are actually captured on tape, Kody and her exchange, the breakup, they had already had the talk several times, but it was a taped conversation created just for the presentation. However, Kody then feigned to her that he was unaware that he had been moved out. Kody observed the boxes in her house and the garage and understood that the garage boxes were there. And it wasn't until she saw the broadcast that she realized he had seen the boxes. She summoned everyone over to tell them, which is another instance of her fakery. As they sat outdoors, she was departing from Kody. She had previously called Meri. Thus, she had informed Janelle of her departure beforehand. Janelle was previously aware of this. Because she didn't want to, well, surprise the two women who had been there the entire time, she had let Janelle know about that chat. She then gave Meri a call as well, telling her that Meri knew she was leaving and that her on-camera response was absurd. Meri had been contacted by her. "I want to tell," she had murmured to Meri. "I feel like you deserve to know this from me," she says, appearing astonished and irritated on camera as she presents it as though it were brand new knowledge. "You've heard this before, so it doesn't come as a surprise," she adds. She continues by saying that Meri seemed irate, as if this were brand new knowledge. On camera, Meri claims that she has never heard of any of this before. She was simply absorbing it. She then said, like Meri already understood this. Therefore, Meri's reaction was wholly unauthentic, and she shouldn't have experienced it. Rather, it served as a reminder to her of how much acting would be required throughout filming. And everything changed for her when she grew weary of playing the game and had to watch what she said. The money issue is another important factor here, and we'll discuss other aspects of the book in a separate video that she discloses they don't discuss on the show. Of the show and the fact that she was receiving a smaller salary than Robyn and Kody. Nevertheless, she also makes it clear that Kody manipulated Meri, Christine, and Janelle because he was avaricious and needed to put on a show. In order to continue filming the show, he was making every effort to win them back. And that he became increasingly aggressive to them as a result of his desperation to tape the show since he didn't want to lose his gold pot of money that he had become involved with the show. He told them that he was moving them to Flagstaff because Dayton wanted to attend the school there and that he didn't want to lose the show or the fame. However, he also used deceit to get money from each of them, even Meri. In the book, he accuses her. He makes the accusation that Robyn and Kody deceived Meri into believing that they had a chance to reunite with her in order to embezzle the money from her Las Vegas home sale. Then he repeats the action when he was always trying to win Janelle back because he wanted her money, and it was all motivated by greed. She was told that she would no longer be involved in this story of, "I'm going to pretend so you can profit off of this so you can make money at the expense of everyone else." And that Robyn was fine with it because she was making money off of it. She claimed that this was one of the biggest betrayals of all time because Robyn never really practiced polygamy because what she and Kody were doing was, he would do just enough to win them back for a moment, but it would never return, and he would unravel everything for them, until they finally couldn't handle it any longer. He was keeping them along so they could live a lavish life and giving them hope that there would be a chance for reconciliation. Even though the show was a total hoax in many respects, you can still witness instances where the truth was revealed, yet they were punished off camera. And a great deal of their statements stating that they differed from the FLDS. They simply weren't discussing it, but they were. In the comment section below, please share your thoughts on all of this. September 2nd is the book's release date. In fact, it is currently available on Barnes & Noble's shelves. The books are available in stores, but you can't obtain it online. Sister Wife is a memoir about faith, family, and achieving freedom. Please share your thoughts with me. Be sure to give this video a positive rating. To ensure you never miss a video, please click the bell and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Many thanks for viewing. Goodbye, closest friends.